You are about to sit down for a meal you already know is loaded with carbs tonight. Maybe it is a sushi dinner with friends, a holiday table, or your weekly meal prep rice bowl. You can already feel the guilt creeping in quietly before you have even taken your very first bite. You know exactly what is coming. The insulin spike, the energy crash, the sluggish, heavy feeling afterward. And the most frustrating part is that sometimes these are not even bad meals by any real measure. They are just real life. Sushi nights, birthday dinners, holiday tables, rice sitting in your weekly meal prep. But what if you could walk into every single one of those meals already completely prepared from the inside? What if you could prime your entire metabolism before the food even has a chance to hit your stomach? What if the answer to all of this was already sitting quietly in your kitchen, costing you almost nothing? And here is the part that is going to sound completely backwards and wrong when you first hear it. What if that answer, the thing that protects you from insulin spikes, was actually a type of sugar? I know that sounds like the opposite of everything you have ever been told about managing your blood sugar. But stay with me, because what follows next is not a theory or a trend or somebody's opinion online. New research shows that a tiny, strategic dose of fructose can dramatically lower your blood sugar response after eating. Not just slightly lower, we are talking about a 14% reduction in your glucose spike after a meal. And even more remarkably, the insulin response in the people being studied dropped by a full 21%. This does not mean you now have a free pass to eat sugar however and whenever you want daily. What it means is that 1 teaspoon of raw honey taken at exactly the right moment changes everything completely. It becomes a signal, a precise, deliberate signal that changes how your entire body handles everything that follows. Here is exactly what we are going to cover, so you walk away knowing how to actually use this. First, why fructose and glucose are completely different things, and why that difference is the entire key here. Second, the actual published study that proves this works even in people with serious existing blood sugar problems. Third, the exact protocol, the timing, the dose, and 2 powerful additions that make the whole thing stronger. Most people treat all sugar as the same enemy, but your body sees fructose and glucose very differently. Think of glucose as the universal fuel of your entire body. Every single cell can use it immediately. When you eat bread, rice, pasta, or a potato, your body converts all of it into glucose fast. That glucose floods into your bloodstream and gets delivered to your brain, your muscles, and every organ inside you. It is general-purpose fuel, and your entire body is completely designed and built to use it right away. Fructose is an entirely different story, and the way your body handles it is completely unique to one organ. Think of fructose like a specialty currency that only works inside one very specific and important place: your liver. Your liver is the only organ in your entire body that can actually process and handle fructose properly. Your muscles cannot use fructose as fuel at all. Your brain cannot use it directly either in any way. The moment fructose is absorbed in your gut, it travels in a straight line directly to your liver alone. Now here is where the conversation about fructose usually turns very negative. And that reaction is completely fair too. When you consume large amounts of fructose regularly, it overwhelms your liver in a very real and damaging way. A large soda loaded with high fructose corn syrup sends a massive flood straight into your liver all at once. Your liver simply cannot keep up with that enormous influx, arriving faster than it can possibly be processed safely. So it does the only thing it knows how to do in that situation: it converts the excess into fat. This process is called de novo lipogenesis, and it directly drives the development of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease over time. So to be completely clear, this is not a reason to start adding fructose freely into your daily diet. What we are talking about is something fundamentally different: A small and intentional dose used strictly as a signal only. Instead of flooding the liver, the goal is to send it a quiet and polite heads-up call before eating. A signal that says something big is coming, so get the entire warehouse completely ready right now, immediately. That tiny signal, as it turns out, changes absolutely everything about how your body handles the carbohydrates coming next. The research that backs this up is one of the most genuinely fascinating things you will come across today. There was a study published in the journal Diabetes Care that looked at this exact specific question very directly. The design of the study was straightforward, but the findings that came out of it were genuinely enormous in scale. Researchers took a group of people who already had type 2 diabetes and ran two completely separate tests on them. These are people whose blood sugar management systems are already seriously and significantly damaged by the disease itself already. If this protocol works on them, it is going to work even more effectively in people who are healthy. That is what makes this study so compelling. The baseline these people are starting from is already heavily compromised. In the first test, participants received a standard 75-gram glucose drink, with absolutely nothing else added alongside it. Exactly what you would expect to happen did happen. Blood sugar spiked hard, and insulin levels followed right along. High blood sugar and high insulin, the exact dangerous pattern that drives fat storage and long-term metabolic damage. Now here is where the second test becomes very interesting, and where everything counterintuitive fully comes into the light. In the second test, researchers gave participants the exact same 75-gram glucose drink as in the first test. But this time, they added just 7.5 grams of fructose right before the glucose was consumed. 7.5 grams. That is roughly what you would find sitting inside one single teaspoon of honey. In the logic of most people, adding more sugar on top of a glucose drink only makes things dramatically worse. You are already dealing with 75 grams of glucose. Why would adding fructose help anything here at all? But the exact opposite of what you would logically expect actually happened. And this is the core of everything. The group that received the small fructose dose had a blood sugar response that came in 14% lower overall. Their insulin response also dropped by 21% compared to consuming the same glucose drink completely on its own. Adding a tiny amount of fructose before a massive glucose load actually reduced both blood sugar and insulin together. That is not a coincidence or a lucky fluke. There is a very clear mechanism that explains exactly why this works. It all comes back to that liver-specific pathway we talked about right at the very beginning of this conversation. When the small fructose dose reaches the liver first, it triggers a very specific and deeply important internal reaction. It activates a critical enzyme inside your liver cells called hepatic glucokinase. And this enzyme is the key player. Think of hepatic glucokinase as the foreman of a very large and extremely busy metabolic warehouse inside your body. That warehouse is your liver, and the foreman's entire job is managing everything that flows in through the doors. The small fructose hit is like a phone call to that foreman right before the main delivery truck arrives outside. It says a massive truck packed full of glucose is pulling up to the loading dock very shortly right now. Get your entire crew out there. Get every forklift running, because this incoming load is going to be absolutely enormous. So by the time your meal's glucose actually arrives at the liver, the foreman has everything completely prepared already. The glucokinase is fully activated, and it starts pulling glucose out of your blood with remarkable and impressive speed. It traps that glucose safely inside the liver, locking it away as stored glycogen rather than letting it circulate freely. Because your liver is now an efficient glucose sponge, far less sugar remains floating loose in your bloodstream overall. That means a smaller and flatter blood sugar curve and a meaningfully lower insulin response following your entire meal completely. You used a tiny sugar signal to help your body manage a much larger incoming glucose load more effectively. It is genuinely elegant, and once you understand the mechanism clearly, the whole thing makes complete and perfect sense. Now let us take all of this science and turn it into something practical you can actually begin using today. Here is the core protocol, followed by 2 powerful additions that make the entire approach significantly more effective overall. Based on the published research, the ideal timing is 15 to 20 minutes before any high-carb meal begins. This window gives the fructose enough time to actually reach your liver and fully activate that critical enzyme inside. The dose matters enormously here. You need approximately 7.5 grams of fructose for this to work properly. Too little, and you may not activate the enzyme strongly enough to make any meaningful real difference at all. Too much, and you risk overwhelming the liver the same damaging way that a large sugary drink always does. 1 teaspoon of good quality raw honey or manuka honey puts you right into the ideal and effective range. That is the simple version of this protocol, and it works exactly as described in the published research study. 1 teaspoon of raw honey 15 to 20 minutes before your meal and your liver is completely primed and ready. But if you want to go further and genuinely compound the effect, there are 2 very powerful additions available. These 2 additions each target a completely different part of your body's blood sugar management system at the same time. The first addition is glycine, a simple amino acid that is affordable, almost completely tasteless, and genuinely very powerful. While the fructose is priming your liver, glycine goes to work on a completely separate and equally critical organ. That organ is your pancreas, which is responsible for producing and releasing all of your body's insulin when needed. Research from the Journal of Clinical Investigation found something deeply important about what glycine actually does over consistent use. Glycine does not just help your pancreas release insulin more effectively during a single high-carb meal right now. It actually signals the pancreas to grow more insulin-producing beta cells over a longer period of regular consistent use. This means glycine is not just a pre-meal management tool. It is actively rebuilding your pancreas from the inside out. It increases your pancreas's long-term capacity to handle metabolic stress, making it progressively more resilient with every regular dose. You are not just managing one meal better in the short term. You are building a stronger metabolic foundation entirely. The dose is simple. 3 to 5 grams of glycine powder mixed into a small glass of plain water works. Take it at the same time you consume the honey, about 15 to 20 minutes before your meal begins. Now your liver is primed from the fructose, and your pancreas is simultaneously primed from the glycine at once. 2 completely different organs, 2 precise and deliberate signals, both firing before your meal has even started yet. That is already very powerful on its own. But if you want one final layer, add a small handful of raspberries.